Feedback. It's an essential part of being a leader, both the receiving of and the delivering of. Earlier, we had talked about what feedback really is all about, but we didn't specifically address a particular kind of feedback that can sometimes cause people to get a little bit of a clenched up feeling in different parts of their body. So the question is, what is negative feedback? There are a couple of ways of approaching how you define negative feedback. What I'm going to do is go through each of the two most common descriptions or definitions of negative feedback, and then talk to you about where negative feedback has a place and where it simply doesn't. And it depends largely on those two definitions. The first definition of negative feedback is that feedback which is now often referred to as constructive feedback. In other words, it's feedback on something that you could either tweak, completely change, or at least reconsider. There's another definition in negative feedback. It's feedback that has malicious intent, malicious delivery, and even cruel intent. Because even if what that person is saying is perfectly valid, and frequently it probably has a germ of truth in it, it's being delivered in such a way that it simply cannot be easily taken as an opportunity for growth. It's kind of hard to think about an opportunity for growth in an event where you feel like a little bit like you are becoming a walking demonstration of death of a thousand cuts. So let's address the first one. Negative feedback / constructive feedback. In other words, somebody wants you to know that they believe that something that you're doing or saying could be harming you. And so they like you to at least rethink it, if not actually change the behavior, is an opportunity for growth. And despite the fact that whoever it is that's delivering it might be a bit awkward about the delivery, and sometimes the timing isn't wonderful. Sometimes it's just not something you're ready to hear yet. It can be useful. It can increase the levels of trust between you and whoever is giving you that feedback. And it can also be an absolutely wonderful opportunity to see things from somebody else's perspective. Remember, effective communications means communications that creates a state where the receiver gets the message as the sender intended. We're always sending messages. The question is, are you sending the message that you mean to send? Getting constructive feedback is one way of finding out that, ooh, it looks very much like I'm not. And then you can choose to do something about it. Now, the other kind of negative feedback typically includes feedback that is designed to be painful, where the message is created out of, as I said, a tiny germ of truth. It's frequently created out of a tiny germ of truth. However, it is molded and baked into something that feels very much like a weapon that's being used against you. Do I think that there's no opportunity to learn anything from that kind of negative feedback? Well, it does tell you a great number of things. It tells you that that individual is actually willing to do that. Sometimes it tells you about how that individual might not even be aware that that's how they're coming off. But mostly, it gives you information so that you can base decisions about trust and the nature of that relationship with that individual. You can make those decisions with a little bit more information and a little bit more of a sense of where it can go and where it might not ever go. There is recently, okay, make a note, this is, about the middle of 2021, for those of you who are watching this video significantly later. There's a 10-year-old chess champion in the United States, and there were a whole spate of articles about this young man. And I'm going to glance down because I want to make sure that I pronounce it correctly. Tani Tolua Adewumi. Imagine my relief in reading in the article that he prefers to be called Tani. Thank you. He's very young. Even younger when you consider that he's only actually been playing chess for about 3 years. He's not just a child prodigy. He is a child prodigy with an accelerated learning curve. But his answer to how does it feel when you lose, I thought was even more valuable. He said, if I lose, I have made a mistake. If I don't know about that mistake I could make, I can't do anything about not making it again. So I don't lose, I learn. Wisdom indeed out of the mouths of babes. If we're getting constructive feedback, formerly known as negative feedback, then we're getting an opportunity to learn. And all we have to lose is a little edge of comfort, perhaps. On occasion, we might gain a wee bit of embarrassment, but mostly it's an opportunity to get better. It's an opportunity to find out about a mistake we didn't even know we were making so that we can get better. On the other hand, if it's negative feedback that's met with ill intent, sometimes manipulative cruelty, it's entirely possible that it's an opportunity to learn that you might have to take steps, because as the project leader, if an individual on your team is acting in that fashion towards you or anybody else on the team, that is something that you are going to want to address. Not because you're their babysitter, and not because you're their parent, but because this project team's health and the health of their dynamics as they work together is your responsibility. And someone who has a tendency to deliver constructive feedback in a negative fashion is just creating all sorts of havoc and disturbing or completely destroying a sense of collaborative spirit that is one of the key ways that your organization's teams can become higher performing teams. But in particular, collaborative spirit is the key way that your team can perform at a higher level, because you're creating a culture that encourages stronger collaboration. And negative delivery of what might have been, under different circumstances, constructive feedback, that is one of the sure collaborative spirit killers that can come down the road and destroy your hope of the team performing at their best, I guess is what I was trying to say. And you don't want that to happen, do you? I mean, isn't that the exact opposite of project leadership? So get agreement from the entire team about what the definitions of feedback, positive feedback, negative feedback, constructive feedback. Get the definitions agreed to by everyone in the team, and that'll be a really good first step. The second step is to make sure that people are willing to hold themselves accountable if they violate an agreement around the difference between constructive criticism and negative criticism. Third step, rinse, dry, and repeat. It's an ongoing process, beyond iterative. And it's the only way that you can help them deliver an understanding, a belief that will reinforce the delivery of constructive criticism with kind heart and start to whittle away at the number of times that constructive criticism is delivered with malicious intent that turns it into negative feedback. I'm Kimi Hirotsu-Zimski. This video is being brought to you by Leadership Driven Project Management Academy. We always like to make sure that we include a couple of suggestions of things that you can do around the topic that we're discussing in each video lesson. If you find this approach helpful, or if you've enjoyed the topic in general, please subscribe or like. We would love to have you join us on a regular basis. Thanks for joining us today.